Welcome to South Park City Museum, a 19th century mining boomtown in 21st century Colorado. Hello, my name is Erin Pulsifer and I am the curator at South Park City Museum. In today's video, we are going to look at what gold mining was like in the Old West, specifically in South Park, Colorado. If you would like to know more about the history of South Park, check out this video. Before we get started, please just take a moment to subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out. If you enjoy our videos and would like to be notified when we post new ones, hit that notification bell so you'll never miss a thing. The year was 1859. Gold was discovered in South Park and the rush was on. Hordes of gold seekers spilled into the area, and within a few short months the mountains were dotted with mining camps sporting names like Tarryall, Horseshoe, Eureka, and Buckskin Joe. These camps grew to become boom towns, thriving communities on the edge of the frontier. Gradually, the mining dried up and the people moved on, leaving their towns and camps to the elements until all that remained were decaying ghost towns. The inspiration behind South Park City was to preserve these buildings and to show modern people what life was like in a gold boomtown. Fairplay, founded in 1859 during the first part of the gold rush, escaped the fate of these other boom towns. With a more diversified economy, it has endured through the years. So what was it like for gold miners in the Old West? The first gold seekers to arrive in the area were the prospectors. Turned away from Tarryall by the greedy miners who arrived before them, the prospectors tried their luck at the junction of Beaver Creek and the South Platte River. The settlement was named Fairplay as an oath that every arrival would have a fair shot at striking gold. The first step for these early miners was to stake a claim. An area was chosen near the river and the boundaries were clearly marked. The claim was registered with the local commissioner. Once this step was done, the claim was the legal property of the miner. Tents or shacks were set up and the prospector went to work. Sometimes, groups of hopefuls would work a claim together, making better time with the shared labor. Panning for gold was the most common way to start the search. Placer gold can be found in areas where water has eroded gold veins, distributing it in the gravel found near the water. When a claim proved viable, miners would move on to more complicated methods, such as cradles and sluices, to wash the gold. Using the simple principle that gold is heavier than the gravel and rock that surrounds it, miners could wash larger amounts of material at a time, increasing their chances of finding gold. This is the same concept behind the massive gold dredges which came along decades later. If a prospector was lucky, he could make quite a living this way. More likely, the miner just found enough gold to pay for the supplies to keep going. But how did a miner turn those nuggets into spendable cash? The assay office was a common fixture in Old West towns. This was a laboratory of sorts where the ore was tested and graded. The assayer was a skilled professional who used metallurgy, the scientific method used to determine the purity of precious metals. After testing, prospectors and mine owners knew if the ore they were extracting was of commercial value. The assay office would also take a deposit of gold, paying the miner its worth in cash. The assay office at South Park City was once the assay office at the famous North London Mill, located near the timber line on the Mosquito Pass Road. It became part of South Park City in 1958. The large, rough logs used in the construction of this building look out of place when compared to its overall size. Its sturdy construction is a reminder of the high winds and drifting snow it had to endure high on Mosquito Pass. The assay office is furnished as it was during those rip-roaring gold rush days. The equipment was obtained from various mines in the area. The floor is dirt, as were most of the assay offices in Park County. Here, one can see kilns, scales, crucibles, and retorts. Vessels which were used to heat ore so the metal could be removed by distillation or sublimation. Chemicals lining the shelves were used for testing the purity and grade of the ore. A small handmade chair and table, along with a potbelly stove, are the only comforts in the office. Various rock samples, including gold-bearing ore, copper, quartz, and crystals, are displayed in the cabinet. Other rock samples on the shelves along the walls include core samples as well as tongs for handling hot metal. Most prospectors didn't strike it rich. Many found enough gold or gold dust to pay for the supplies they needed to keep going for a while, still holding on to their dreams of finding the ultimate cache of gold. A few miners did become rich, but it was the blacksmith, the grocer, and other businesses in boom towns that really raked in the cash. Fairplay, at an elevation of 9,954 feet, or almost 2 miles above sea level, was an inhospitable place to spend the winter. Those canvas tents or shacks, which were hastily constructed during the early days of the rush, would not hold up to the snow and harsh winter winds. Some miners went down to Denver or to Colorado Springs to wait out the winter, only to find their claims had been jumped by hardier, or more foolish, men. Mining companies stepped in where individual miners failed. Huge placer and hard rock mining operations moved into South Park. Some of the miners who came seeking their fortune stayed as employees of these companies. As easily accessible placer deposits began to play out, hard rock mines were established. More difficult to locate, lode deposits or gold veins embedded deep down in hard rock required more expensive machinery and more manpower. Mining companies had the resources to establish such mines in South Park. The Alma Queen mine at South Park City is a recreation of a hard rock mine shaft where visitors can get a small taste of what it might have been like to head down into a hard rock mine. The miners would start and end their day at the head house. Also known as a dry, this structure was essentially a locker room for miners. A wood stove was kept burning for the miners to hang their work clothes to dry after a sweaty, damp day spent below ground. It was a facility provided by large underground operations. It served to offer the miners a place to change out of their work clothes before heading home, and it was designed to make it very difficult for these miners to take gold home in their pockets. The head house was originally a blacksmith shop in Levick, a mining camp on 4 Mile Creek. It is situated next to the gallows frame. Some mining companies established a company store. Here, miners could buy everything from clothing and food staples to hardware and lumber. In remote areas, it was often the only place where people could buy these necessities. The company store offered the mine employees credit to purchase things without paying up front. The payments for these items would be deducted directly from the miners' paychecks, sometimes leaving them with nothing. Other mines paid their employees with company store coupons rather than cash. With the items in the store marked up to very high prices and having no alternatives, the miners could fall into a vicious cycle of charging food and necessities at the company store, raising their bill every month and leaving them in debt for the rest of their lives. The miners lived out their days in simple cabins. It was dangerous work. Mining accidents were common, and many miners lost their lives down in those shafts. Their surviving families didn't have much choice but to send their sons to work in the same mine shafts. The large timber structure on the hill at South Park City is a head frame, or gallows frame as it was commonly called. No, it was not used for hanging criminals, but from a distance it could be mistaken for that purpose. No doubt this is how it got its name. This head frame was used in the operation of the Phillips Gold Mine, discovered in 1859 and located in Buckskin Gulch, 2 miles west of Alma. The Phillips Mine was the first large producing mine in the area. It was this claim that started the gold rush to the settlement that later became known as Buckskin Joe. The frame supported the cable and pulleys used for lowering and raising the ore buckets in the mine shaft. These buckets served many purposes. They were used to move equipment and even burrows down into the mine. The miners would use the buckets for entering and leaving the mine as well. Can you imagine riding one of these buckets down into the stuffy, damp dark? When the ore was brought up from the mine shaft via the gallows frame, it was dumped into carts and moved along to the stamp mill to be processed. The first step was to use crushing machines to break up the ore and rock into smaller pieces. It then passed through the stamp machines, which broke it into even smaller bits. Next came the Wilfley table, which was constantly shaking. The table separated the heavier gold particles from the lighter gravel and debris by means of riffles, which were long, shallow channels set up along the length of the table. The gold was then separated from the rock by use of chemicals. The machines that crushed or stamped the ore were run by boilers, which moved the machines by a system of pulleys mounted in the rafters. The mining mill building at South Park City is home to machinery used in the gold mining operations of the 1800s. A portable boiler built by Ames Iron Works of Oswego, New York, generated steam pressure to run an engine. This boiler is connected to a one-cycle Nagel engine built around 1900. The engine produced up to 25 horsepower at 2200 RPM, sufficient power to operate the entire stamp mill. The collection also includes 2 steam boilers dated 1867 from the Upper Moose Mine. In the late 1950s, the boilers had been slated to go to the Smithsonian Institute until it was decided that getting them off the mountain would be too costly and difficult. However, this did not deter South Park City founder Leon Snyder. He contacted Arthur Flanagan, a realtor and former mining engineer from Alma, and they concluded that with the proper moving equipment, they could get the job done. Their efforts were successful. One of these boilers is located in the mill building. The other boiler rests at the north end of South Park City, facing Mount Bros, the very mountain where it had served those early miners many years ago. If you would like to see South Park City's mining buildings in person, the museum is open from May 15th to October 15th every year. As a non-profit organization, South Park City survives on the proceeds from ticket sales and private donations. If you'd like to contribute, the link to our donation page is below. Donations from this video will be put to work maintaining our historic buildings and will help conserve over 60,000 artifacts. What do you think of the risky life of an Old West miner? Do you think the danger and hardship was worth it? What other topics would you like to see covered on this channel? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. We post new videos on the first Friday of every month. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this video, please support South Park City by giving us a thumbs up. We'll see you next time.
Hi, oh, my soul, to the company store.